Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we continue this emotional story, tell us in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you think stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We're growing every day, and I sincerely thank you for being a part of IT.st. Mary's General Hospital had seen better days. The paint was peeling in the older wings. The fluorescent lights flickered in the basement corridors, and the night shift moved with the tired rhythm of people who'd seen too much. But it was home to hundreds of staff members who kept the place running, most of them invisible to the patients and families who passed through those doors looking for miracles. Among the most invisible was Robert Chun, the night janitor who'd been pushing his gray cart through those same hallways for 12 years. He arrived every evening at 10 p.m. sharp, punched his time card with the same mechanical precision, and disappeared into a maze of corridors that most people never saw. The morgue, the storage rooms, the maintenance areas where broken equipment went to die. Robert was 62 years old, with silver hair always hidden under a navy blue cap and clothes that hung loose on his thin frame. He spoke only when spoken to, which wasn't often. The nurses would nod politely when they passed him in the hallways. The doctors barely acknowledged his existence. He was part of the furniture, as permanent and unremarkable as the beige walls he mopped every night. But if anyone had looked closely, really looked, they might have noticed things. The way he moved through the hospital with purpose, never needing to check room numbers or ask for directions. The way his eyes automatically scanned every room he entered, not just for trash or spills, but for something else entirely. The way he carried himself with a quiet discipline that seemed out of place for someone whose job was emptying wastebaskets. Most telling of all was a small silver pin he wore on his uniform shirt, usually hidden beneath his name tag. It was faded and worn, the kind of thing that might have been a company logo or a service award. No one ever asked about it. No one ever looked that closely. The ER at St. Mary's was controlled chaos on a good night. On bad nights, it was something else entirely. Dr. Sarah Martinez had been working there for 3 years, ever since finishing her residency, and she'd learned to read the signs. The way the security guards' shoulders tensed when certain ambulances pulled up. The way the senior nurses moved a little faster when the radio crackled with certain codes. The way the whole department seemed to hold its breath when multiple traumas came in at once. Tonight felt different. It was past midnight, and the usual mix of heart attacks, overdoses, and domestic violence calls had kept everyone busy. But there was an undercurrent of tension that Dr. Martinez couldn't quite place. The paramedics had been unusually quiet during their handoffs. The police officers who accompanied some of the patients kept glancing at each other with expressions she couldn't read. IT was Nurse Patricia Williams, who finally explained what was happening. Patricia had been at St. Mary's for 15 years, long enough to know every janitor, every security guard, every face that moved through the hospital at night. She found Dr. Martinez restocking supplies in Trauma Bay 3 and lowered her voice. "There's been an incident downtown," Patricia said. "Multiple casualties. They're routing some of them here, but..." She paused, choosing her words carefully. Word is it wasn't an accident. Dr. Martinez felt her stomach tighten. In the 3 years she'd been working emergency medicine, she'd treated gunshot wounds, stab wounds, and every kind of violence the city could produce. But coordinated attacks were different. They meant multiple victims, often with similar injuries. They meant families destroyed in a single moment. They meant the kind of chaos that could overwhelm even the most prepared emergency department. "How many?" she asked. "We don't know yet. Could be 6, could be 20. Mass casualty protocol is in effect." The next hour passed in a blur of preparation. Additional staff were called in. Supply rooms were restocked. The family waiting area was cleared and converted to a temporary triage space. Dr. Martinez had been through mass casualty drills before, but she'd never experienced the real thing.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, you can help more people hear this story by liking this video. Bell, every week we share unforgettable stories of silent heroes.
The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders like a physical thing. Robert Chin continued his rounds through all of this, his cart moving steadily through the corridors as if nothing had changed. He emptied the trash in the break room while doctors grabbed hasty cups of coffee. He mopped the floors in the supply closets while nurses pulled extra equipment. He cleaned the windows in the family waiting room while security guards rearranged the chairs. But if anyone had been watching carefully, they might have noticed that his movements had become more purposeful. His eyes swept each room with greater intensity, and the small silver pin on his uniform shirt seemed to catch the light more often, as if he'd adjusted his posture to make it more visible. The first ambulance arrived at 1:47 a.m. Dr. Martinez was waiting in the bay when the paramedics rolled out a young woman, maybe 25, with multiple gunshot wounds to the chest and abdomen. The paramedics' report was grim: blood loss, possible internal injuries, vital signs unstable. Trauma 1, Dr. Martinez called out, and the organized chaos of emergency medicine took over. For lines, blood pressure cuffs, monitors beeping with electronic urgency. The woman was conscious but fading, her eyes wide with the kind of fear that comes with understanding mortality. "What's your name?" Dr. Martinez asked, checking the woman's pupils with a penlight. "Jennifer," the woman whispered. "Jennifer Walsh. Is my husband. Is he? Focus on me right now, Jennifer. We're going to take good care of you." The second ambulance arrived 5 minutes later. Then the third. By 2:15 a.m., 8 victims had been brought in, all with similar injuries, all with the same look of shocked disbelief. The emergency department transformed into something that felt more like a battlefield medical unit than a civilian hospital. Doctor Martinez moved from trauma bay to trauma bay, making split-second decisions about who needed surgery first, who could wait, who might not make it regardless of what they did. It was a kind of triage that haunted emergency physicians, choosing between lives when there wasn't enough time or resources to save everyone that I end trauma bay for. She worked on a middle-aged man who'd been shot in the neck. The bullet had missed the major arteries, but damaged the trachea, making it difficult for him to breathe. As she prepared to intubate, her hand shook slightly, not from inexperience, but from the accumulated stress of too many critical decisions in too short a time. "Doctor." The voice was quiet but authoritative. Dr. Martinez looked up to see Robertson standing in the doorway of the trauma bay, his janitor's cart beside him. She'd never heard him speak before, never really noticed him, except as part of the hospital's background. "Not now," she said, turning back to her patient. "I need to focus." "Your hands are shaking," Robert said calmly. "You're hyperventilating. If you intubate now, you'll puncture his esophagus." Dr. Martinez stopped, her hand frozen halfway to the intubation equipment. There was something in the janitor's voice that commanded attention, not arrogance, but absolute certainty, the kind of voice that expected to be obeyed. "I'm sorry, what?" she said. Robert stepped into the trauma bay, his movements suddenly different. Gone was the shuffling gait of the maintenance worker. In its place was the purposeful stride of someone who belonged in a medical emergency. He approached the patient's bedside and glanced at the monitors, taking in the vital signs with the practiced eye of someone who'd done this before. "Pulse ox is dropping, but his color is still good," Robert said. "The tracheal damage is higher than you think. You need to do a surgical airway, not an intubation." Dr. Martinez stared at him. "You're a janitor." "Right now, I'm trying to help you save this man's life." Robert's voice remained calm, but there was something in his eyes that made her listen. "You've been working for 3 straight hours. You're making decisions based on adrenaline, not assessment. Step back and look at the actual injury." Against every instinct she had, Dr. Martinez found herself following his advice. She took a deep breath, really looked at the patient's neck wound, and realized he was right. The bullet had damaged the trachea much higher than she'd initially thought. An intubation would be dangerous, possibly fatal. "Who are you?" she asked. Robert didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved to the patient's other side and gently tilted the man's head back, exposing the injury more clearly. "You need to do a cricothyrotomy, just above the Adam's apple. The equipment is in the trauma cart, second drawer." Dr. Martinez found herself following his instructions, her hand steadying as she focused on a specific task rather than the overwhelming chaos around her. As she made the incision, Robert guided her with quiet, precise directions. His knowledge of anatomy was perfect. His understanding of the procedure was that of someone who'd done it many times before. The cricothyrotomy was successful. The patient's breathing stabilized, his color improved. As Dr. Martinez secured the temporary airway, she looked up to thank Robert, but he was already gone. His cart was missing from the doorway, and there was no sign he'd ever been there except for the successfully treated patient lying on the table. Nurse Patricia Williams appeared in the doorway. "How's he doing?" "Better," Dr. Martinez said. "Patricia, who is Robertson? The janitor? He's worked here for years. Quiet guy, keeps to himself." "Why?" He helped me with this procedure. He knew exactly what to do." Patricia frowned. "That's odd. I've never seen him do anything medical. He's always been just maintenance." Dr. Martinez was about to respond when the trauma bay's phone rang. Another ambulance was incoming, this one with the most critical patient yet. She pushed her questions about Robertson aside and prepared for the next crisis. But as she worked through the rest of the night, she found herself looking for him. In the hallways, in the supply rooms, anywhere she might catch a glimpse of the man who'd appeared at exactly the right moment with exactly the right knowledge. She didn't see him again until nearly dawn. The last patient had been stabilized and sent to surgery. The emergency department was finally quiet except for the usual overnight activity. Dr. Martinez was completing her paperwork when she noticed Robert Chen's cart in the hallway outside the trauma bays. She could hear the quiet sound of someone mopping floors. She found him in Trauma Bay 4, methodically cleaning the room where he'd helped her save the patient's life. He worked with the same careful precision she'd seen in his medical knowledge, erasing all traces of the night's drama. "Robert," she said quietly till he looked up, and for a moment, she saw something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Not exactly recognition, but acknowledgement, as if he'd been expecting this conversation. "Dr. Martinez," he said, wringing out his mop, "how are the patients?" "They're all stable. Thanks to you, in part." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Where did you learn to do what you did tonight?" Robert continued mopping, his movement steady and methodical. "I've been working in hospitals for a long time. You pick things up?" "That wasn't picking things up. That was medical training, advanced medical training." He stopped mopping and leaned on the handle, studying her face. There was a long moment of silence, and Dr. Martinez had the feeling he was deciding whether to trust her with something important. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Of course. In all the time you've worked here, have you ever really looked at the people who keep this place running? The security guards, the cleaning staff, the maintenance workers?" Dr. Martinez felt a flush of embarrassment. I try to be polite to everyone." "That's not what I mean." Robert's voice was gentle but pointed. "I mean really looked, really seen them as people with histories, with skills, with stories that might surprise you." She realized she couldn't answer truthfully without admitting that she thought of him as part of the hospital's background, no more noteworthy than the equipment he cleaned around. "I thought so," Robert said, returning to his mopping. "Most people don't. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's useful to be invisible. But you're not invisible. You saved a man's life tonight." "No," Robert said firmly. "You saved his life. I just reminded you of what you already knew." Dr. Martinez watched him work, noting again the precise movements, the careful attention to detail. "You were a medic, weren't you?" "Military." Robert paused in his work, but didn't look up. "I was a lot of things." "The pin on your shirt. I noticed it earlier. It's not a company logo, is it?" This time he did look up, and she saw him touch the small silver pin almost unconsciously. "It's a combat medical badge," he said quietly. "Army. 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan." The pieces began to fall into place. "You were a combat medic." "Flight medic. Actually, helicopter medical evacuations. We went where the wounded were, usually in the middle of firefights." He resumed mopping, but his voice took on a different quality. 22 years of service. Hundreds of medical emergencies under enemy fire. You learn to make quick decisions when people are dying. Why are you working as a janitor? Robert's laugh was quiet and without humor. Do you know what the job market is like for a 62-year-old veteran with medical training but no civilian certifications? no degree beyond high school, no connections in the medical community. Dr. Martinez felt another flush of embarrassment. I hadn't thought about it. Most people don't. I applied for medical assistant, jobs, paramedic positions, anything that would let me use my training. Nobody wanted to hire someone my age for entry-level positions. But hospitals always need janitors. So I took the job, and I've been here for 12 years. But you could have gotten your certifications, gone back to school. With what money? On what schedule? I work nights to pay rent on a studio apartment. During the day, I take care of my mother, who has Alzheimer's. When exactly would I have time for school? The weight of his words settled on her. Here was a man with more medical experience than most of the residents she worked with, more experience with trauma than she gained in 3 years of emergency medicine. And he'd been emptying her trash can for months while she'd never bothered to learn his name. "I'm sorry," she said, and meant it. "Don't be. I'm not telling you this for pity. I'm telling you because tonight you asked, and because you deserve to know who helped you save that man's life." They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, Robert continuing his cleaning, while Dr. Martinez organized her paperwork. Finally, she spoke again. "Would you be willing to help again, if we have another night like this?" Robert stopped mopping and looked at her carefully. "What do you mean?" "I mean, would you be willing to be available during mass casualty events?" "Not officially. I couldn't make that happen without a lot of bureaucracy. But if you happen to be nearby when we needed experienced hands, you'd be taking a risk. If administration found out, if something went wrong, you saved a man's life tonight. I'd rather have you nearby than not." Robert considered this for a long moment. "I'll think about it." As he prepared to leave, pushing his cart toward the next area to clean, Dr. Martinez called after him. "Robert, thank you for tonight and for opening my eyes." He nodded and continued down the hallway, disappearing around the corner with the same quiet efficiency he'd shown for 12 years. But something had changed. Dr. Martinez would never look at the hospital support staff the same way again. Over the following weeks, she made an effort to really see the people who worked around her. She learned that Marcus, the security guard, had been a military police officer, that Janet, the overnight clerk, had a degree in accounting but couldn't find full-time work, that Tony, the maintenance supervisor, had been an aircraft mechanic in the Air Force. Each of them had skills, experiences, and stories that their job titles didn't reflect. Each of them had become invisible through a combination of economic necessity and social assumptions. And Robertson continued his rounds, mopping floors and emptying trash cans, visible now to at least one person who understood that heroes don't always wear the uniforms you expect them to point 3 months later. Another mass casualty event struck the city. This time, Dr. Martinez was ready. When the first ambulance arrived, she glanced toward the supply closet where Robertson was quietly restocking cleaning supplies. Their eyes met for a moment, and he gave the slightest nod. For the next 6 hours, the emergency department ran with unusual efficiency. Somehow, the right supplies appeared in the right places. Critical equipment was always clean and ready. And when Dr. Martinez found herself overwhelmed by the sheer number of patients, she'd glance up to find Robertson nearby, quietly offering guidance that helped to make life-or-death decisions to everyone else. He was still just a janitor, but to Dr. Martinez, he had become something else entirely. A reminder that extraordinary people can be found in the most ordinary places, if only we take the time to really see them. The heroes we celebrate in movies and books are often the ones who stand in the spotlight, who receive recognition for their courage and skill. But the real heroes, the ones who keep the world functioning, are often the ones we walk past every day without noticing. They're the janitors who know more about medicine than most doctors. They're the security guards who save more lives than most soldiers. They're the maintenance workers who keep the infrastructure running while the rest of us sleep. Robertson had been a hero long before that night in the emergency department, but it took a crisis to make his heroism visible to the people around him. And perhaps that's the real lesson, that we're surrounded by extraordinary people doing ordinary jobs, waiting for someone to notice their true value. Sometimes the most powerful act of recognition is simply seeing someone for who they really are, rather than what their job title says they should be. This story was brought to you by The Human Stories. Have you ever discovered that someone in your life was much more than they appear to be? Tell us in the comments about the hidden heroes you've encountered. And if you think stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We'll see you in the next one.